These are the notes I took when I watched the Jocko Podcast 98 with Jordan Peterson. It's very good. I recommend watching the whole thing, but these are just the best of notes, the important stuff. So I will read it aloud and, not waste your time with an introduction. A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very, very dangerous man who is in complete control of himself. That's probably the most important lesson in this thing. Well, it's arguable, but that's certainly very important. What is everything in my life that I'm doing wrong? You figure it out, you take responsibility for it, and you fix it. And this is the biggest message of Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership, which I have a review of on my blog, Fight Failure, and I also have a video on this channel. Great book and a very important concept. Moving on. You must get people to do what you want them to do without force. You have to make them want to do what you want. So find out this is different. You find out what fires them up, you put them in the right place, and you let them loose. So this is the concept of decentralized command. And then, as well as decentralized command, you don't give them shit work and pointless accountability crap. You want them to not have to do things that aren't in that 20% of vital tasks. You want to actually help them do their most important job as the leader. So for marriage in particular, but in any arguments, you don't really win arguments. People always seek revenge, even subconsciously. So especially in a relationship, don't do it, but as a general rule, just know you're wasting time if you're arguing with someone. Self-respect, self-compassion, and self-forgiveness, not self-esteem. Self-esteem is pretty much the same thing as narcissism. And I'm sure you listening to this, some people who are narcissistic. They've got this self-esteem, but they really don't have enough self-respect or self-compassion or self-forgiveness, And those things are more important than this concept of self-esteem. When you make a mistake, don't give up, keep going, forgive yourself, understand that there's nothing to do except to keep going. There is no other option. And don't obsess on self-esteem. Well, there you go. You can measure the spirit of a man by testing his appetite for truth. And that is a paraphrase of Nietzsche. So, you talk to people, you deep dive. You go as deep as you can, and you see how comfortable they are with concepts that are true, but maybe things that people don't want to admit. And that's a good way to know. Personally, I don't recommend spending time you don't have to with people who just don't have an appetite for truth. I think you are who you spend time with. And I want to be a truthful person because truth and responsibility, those are the pinnacles of the ideal besides just, plain old proper action at all times. But yeah, you need to spend time with people who have an appetite for truth. And if you don't have an appetite for truth, then maybe you need to become a stronger person so that you can deal with the truth, And if it's not you, but hey, like your job, you're not allowed to, but you hate it. You hate it or something because it's bullshit and there's all this stuff and they're lying and maybe it's political correctness, whatever it is, but I get it. But there's a solution there, and the solution is you need to find a way to get the fuck out of there. And if it's like a 6-month plan or like a 12-month plan or whatever, you need to figure out how to get out of an environment that doesn't allow for truth, because truth is just so important. And personally, it really bothers me when I have to lie just to save face, which is not very often anymore. I just don't say things. But that's in a way also sort of it's not a lie, but omitting things just because people will will lose their shit isn't such a good thing. Now, since I'm kind of like rambling right now, I should also say that the truth can also be used as a weapon. And that's something that Jordan Peterson has brought up several times. Like, yeah, tell the truth, but don't tell it in a way just to hurt someone's feelings or to, like there's a way you can use the truth for bad aims, so don't be a dick or anything, but, well, there you go. When people need help, then people will return the favor. And you shouldn't be helping bad people or people who will not help themselves. So use your common sense here. Don't help people who just don't care enough about themselves or who aren't going to help you back or just don't care or, shit people. So, and if you're indispensable at your job, in general, you really get ahead. That's assuming you're not in a truly pathological environment. If you're in an environment where being a good person and being indispensable is not rewarded, you need to get the fuck out of there because that's a pathological, toxic environment. Now that brings up something else, this idea of being indispensable at your job, and that brings up something from the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. One of the laws is that it's basically make yourself indispensable, except it's stated in a Machiavellian way of put yourself in a position where you cannot be gotten rid of. And certainly that's good advice if you are in a shit company and you want to just ride it out for a while. But if you're in an organization that actually matters, that you care about, or if you're out there actually achieving meaningful goals, taking leadership. As a leader, the most important thing is to raise up everybody, especially the people who are already doing really well, because frankly, it's hard to get to the hard cases, but I mean, you can try if you have the time, but generally you won't because that's just the way it works. But what you do is you make more leaders, right? So you're the leader, and you make more leaders, and then they can make more leaders. And so it's just like, well, I mean, do the math. It's obviously the best thing to do instead of making yourself indispensable. So basically what I'm saying is, when you figure shit out, don't keep it to yourself unless you don't have to listen to this, but try to help other people in your organization if it's an organization that's not just total shit. Okay. So the next thing is that goals must have clarity. So, well, that's pretty self-evident, but to explain it, when you make generalized goals like I'm going to get in shape, or I'm going to be more socially adept. See, that's already a pretty clear goal because I've gotten pretty good at clarifying my goals. But you really have to have. So let's say you start off with the goal of I'm going to set my life completely right. Okay, well that's a good enough. Think big. So that's thinking big. And then you break it down. The areas of your life like family, finance, health, ultimate purpose of life, religion or spirituality, whatever you want to put in that category, and then other things. How are you going to spend your free time? Do you have free time? And then you break that down. You say, what's the best thing I can do with my family? Well, I need to spend at least this amount of time with them. Well, I need to, do these things to make sure the family operates properly. And you write all that out. You really get the clarity going. And that's what you do for your goals. And then you tweak and whatnot. But really, so it needs so much clarity. And, well, there you go. But I can't recommend it enough because, personally, I think goals without clarity are pretty much useless, in my opinion, and in practice, since I've been trying to do this stuff for a while now and had a decent amount of success at it. Anyway, another tip is to think about the horrible things that will happen to you if you don't work towards your goals. So it's typical in the self-help or self-improvement community
to completely eschew the negative and focus completely on the positive. And the thing is, they're both extremely powerful. And if you can use negativity to your advantage, like the classic example is in persuasion, because negative persuasion is amazingly powerful, then absolutely use it. And this is one of those cases of persuasion, except it's about persuading yourself. And it's because humans have a bias. They have a bias that losing something hurts much more. Losing something that you already own hurts much more than gaining, or than gaining something feels good. So if you say to yourself, well, I have to do this diet because I'm going to get ripped, I'm going to get women, I'm going to look great, I'm going to feel great, etc., etc., that's great. I mean, that helps. Those are all very good frames of mind and reasons to repeat to yourself. But what's even more powerful is if you take that positive and then you add to it, hey, if I don't get in shape, I'm going to have a heart attack at 50, I'm going to be obese, nobody's going to fuck me. I'm not going to say don't be negative, because use that negative energy. That is going to motivate you, because that is actually much more powerful than the positive energy of, yeah, I'm going to go out and crush it and get this workout done and look great and, whatever. So just so you know, think about the horrible things that will happen to you if you don't work towards your goals. And that's the power of that is why I don't personally believe in what Scott Adams says. In terms of, I get the whole systems versus goals thing. Like, you have systems instead of goals. So like most people, when they work out, they go like, oh, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Okay. Well, instead of doing that, a better way would be to make a system where you literally go to the gym every day. You go to the gym, and that's your only goal, is to just go to the gym. You literally don't even have to work out. Like, that's not part of his goal plan. But you do go to the gym every single day, and, basically every single day you'll end up working out. And guess what? You do that for a year, you'll be pretty good, right? So that's the whole idea of a system. But when it comes to like really high level meaning goals, you can't systemize the purpose of life. Like, I'm going to act appropriately in every single situation. There's not a system for that. That system is called your brain. That's why it developed in the first place, right? Is so that you'd be able to master the dominance hierarchies and actually achieve success across all domains. Like, that's the whole point of our intelligence as human beings. But anyway, it's not like I dislike Scott Adams for that or anything, but that is a clarification that I think is needed. And if anybody, speaking of that, I've got a review of his book, How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big, on Fight Failure, my blog. The link to that blog is in the description of the video. Okay, so moving on. What are my weaknesses? List them. List your weaknesses. And know that you overcome fears by progressive exposure. So each time you push yourself just a little bit further than you want to go. So like, if you're afraid of talking to women, you go up to a woman, you ask her a question or something, you say your name. You don't have to lie. I want to go out to a restaurant. Any nice places to eat around here, blah, blah, blah. That's fine, but you don't have to lie. You could just be, hey, my name is whatever your name is, and hey, I think you look interesting, like to talk to you, and that's probably further than if you're actually really afraid of people and social interactions. That would definitely be further than you'd be willing to go. But maybe, it depends on how bad you are, but do just beyond what you would normally want to. So if normally you would just be comfortable being around a lot of people, like just out in the open, being around people, then maybe you'd want to
well, I don't know, like join a group of people and something that at least has some kind of something. That seems like that's the best option for that, would be to join a group of people, because there's just no way of randomly encountering people that will talk to you. Well, okay, I thought of something. You could go in like you could talk to somebody who's like a worker at some place, because that's much less socially demanding than talking to a complete stranger, and there's also, an excuse to talk to them. So you could go buy something and you could say some shit to the cashier, So if you're like really socially awkward, that'd be a good first step, and you do that a bunch of times, and you build up your tolerance to that, and then you move on to something a step above that. But you get the idea. So if you're afraid of something, you just push yourself and you overcome the fear, and that's how you do it. So figure out your weaknesses, solve them. So it's not just list your weaknesses, and then you come up with a plan to fix them. And then also list your fears, which are, weaknesses, but they're, it's a little different. And then you come up with a plan to solve them through progressive exposure, and then also through doing other good things. Like if you're afraid of women, besides progressive exposure, you can also make yourself more physically attractive by dressing better, lifting weights, losing weight, etc. So you get the idea. The next thing, emotional intelligence equals agreeableness in practice. And here he's talking about trait agreeableness from the Big Five personality index thingy. So disagreeable, conscientious people are the ones you want in terms of people you really want in your organization. Too many, and it's because too many agreeable people, and you just have a yes man company culture. You can have these people and they're so great at working, but because of their personality traits, they never really, they'll go along with any of the shit you say. So it's just, oh, yes, boss, yeah, man, yes. And, that's sort of how a lot of problems end up if you really think about it, because, well, if you're a boss surrounded by sycophants, what ends up happening is your ego expands and you lose your touch and all this other shit, and you can avoid that by surrounding yourself with people who, frankly, are a little more disagreeable. Of course, you want smart people, you want great advisors, etc., but you don't want kiss asses, and you don't want people who just can't disagree with someone in power, because it's going to end up making you really just sort of a piece of shit, because everybody's going to tell you how great you are. And then there's other reasons, it says it right here, you don't want a yes man company culture, because it'll trickle down through the whole company. Of course, agreeable people have their place. If everybody was like me, I'm very high trait disagreeable. If everybody was like me, everybody'd be an asshole, right? You can only have so many assholes. But obviously I'm not that much of an asshole, because I'm actually, making this thing, and maybe it'll be watched 200 times, 300 times, it's whatever. But, if you're listening to this and you've made it this far, you get some value, and you use this stuff to actually help yourself in your life, that, just because I'm disagreeable doesn't mean oh no, I'm a psycho. No, I think it's a great thing. So do that. Excuse all the digressions. It's just something that I do. Disagreeableness and high negative emotion can be hard to tell apart. It is also completely possible to have a disagreeable person who is high in positive emotion. So the only way you would be able to tell that is the only way to be able to tell, someone's happy. You can't tell if they're disagreeable unless you ask them to do something they don't want to do. And then you know that, hey, this is actually this someone who has trait disagreeableness. And that's another thing. You don't have to surround yourself with dick disagreeable people. You can have happy and positive fucking disagreeable people, but at the end of the day, if you say, hey, go do this shit that's shit, they're just going to say no. And, I guess you don't want that if you're the head of the company, but it's kind of important. Next thing, idea. Oh, yeah, okay, so here's an idea. You figure out your personality, and this is obviously for like down the road, and if you're listening to this and it doesn't apply to you, then whatever, but so the idea is you figure out your personality and then the ideal personality for your spouse. You know, and actually if you already have a spouse, figuring out their personality may be even more important depending on how your relationship is going. It could be going great. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully it is. But so you know how to spot the traits you want in terms of their personality. And I really recommend learning about the big 5 personality traits. It's not the Myers-Briggs or whatever. That's okay, but big 5 is the standard. And it's more useful in my mind from what I understand about it. It just seems more useful to me to think about people in terms of the big 5 personality traits instead of INTJ or ISFJ. Like, you know, it's cool, but it's not as useful to me or really in general, I think. But you know how to spot the traits you want in the other person and how that correlates with big 5 personality traits. And then once things get serious enough, you maybe get her to take a personality test, and maybe you're right or maybe you're wrong. Now, you want to be right, but if you're wrong, then you know that, you know, hey, maybe I need to either learn more things about this certain personality type, or maybe I need to change things, or at least maybe you just get some understanding into this person you didn't have before, and you're like, oh, so that explains blah, you know. And then you'll really know what's going on. So it's good advice. The next thing is that when people do something you like, even small, you should praise them and occasionally reward them to increase the behavior. And the reward must be scarce for it to matter, so you can't always, you know, reward it. So, and you have to watch people really close, or you'll miss when they do the right thing and you won't reward them. So, you know, like, I guess to be frank, this would how you would turn a girl who is pretty good to a girl that could be quite good is you'd praise them when they do good things, you'd ignore bad things and not give in to their drama. And, you know, you do that for 6 months or so. I'm definitely not saying turn hoe into housewife or anything like that. There are some really hard rules. And my advice is always go with the best you can get, and also really try really hard to get the best you can get. But, you know, like, they're little things, and you can kind of fix the little things by doing this. So just reward the good behavior, and it'll increase it. So great stuff. When you need to give feedback, criticism even, be as specific and as detailed as you can be on what needs to be improved. And do tell people when something needs improvement. But be a coach, not a critic. You know, understand the best way to frame it, the best way to say stuff. But, you know, don't just say everything's fine if it's not, and give them actual helpful advice to solve the problem. As a manager, spend your time with the top performers and on getting obstacles out of their way, not on fixing the bottom 10%, because it's a waste of time. You can try putting them somewhere else or on a creative project. And I have an interesting aside on that. I don't remember the game company, and I've never even played the game. It's called Silent Hill. I've never played Silent Hill, but I understand that whatever the game company was, they put all these people who were basically failing in their current jobs together on this team. And that team went on to be the people who made Silent Hill. And, well, it makes perfect sense. Creative types and very introverted types and such on, they will have a tendency not to do so well in many environments, but if you put them all together or on something really creative, they can do amazing things. And speaking of this, is another tip on that. I forget from what. It's from Eric Barker's new book, barking up the wrong tree, which I reviewed. The tip is that sometimes it's not as efficient to actually have people in group settings. Sometimes it actually is more efficient to have people literally just working on their own. I mean, in many cases, groups are great, groups are whatever, but yeah, and in a situation such as that, you would expect maybe not the creative type, but you would definitely expect at least the introverted, higher IQ type to do quite well on their own. So there you go. All kids love attention, even more than adults. Pay attention to kids to get them to like you, and talk to them like an actual person. It's very important. Now this next one is another key one. Who you could be is more important than who you are. So what does that mean? That means don't get attached to yourself in the sense that you're not willing to fucking change things to make life better for you, for your family, or just to bring about something in the world that you think should be. And also, it's a responsibility, man. I mean, it says who you could be is more important than who you are. So think about just how much potential you actually have. Are you living up to that? Why not? What is stopping you? It's yourself, really. It's just yourself. Now, there are going to be some really big problems in your way, but you figure it out. One thing, and you'll feel better because of the dopaminergic system when you start tackling these problems. Tackling problems is actually surprisingly fun. It's a lot better than sitting around moping. Trust me. So this is some bonus. I don't know if it's from the podcast, from this podcast, but it's some good stuff. So, daily small wins are so important. Exercise, writing down what you are grateful for, eating right, doing well at your work, etc. Shield yourself from all truly useless negative information, like depressing music for the sake of depressing music. Or, I don't know, like a shitty horror movie, you know? Like, why? That's not going to benefit you in any way going into your brain. It's just crap. It's just noise. Goal pursuit gives you positive emotion. It gets dopamine flowing. And this is talking, like I said before, about the activation of the dopaminergic system. So what happens when you start winning? Well, this is another thing. The Winning Effect book. It's a book I read by Ian H. Robertson. And what happens is, so you get one win, and then you get dopamine in your brain, and your testosterone rises, and then you get another win, and another one, and another win. And you have what's called momentum, and you'll hear like people like Donald Trump or all these other, also many other successful people will say momentum. It's one of their tenets is momentum. And momentum is basically that. It's that neurochemical dopaminergic feeling of having successive wins, of having a mission, and you rack up the wins and you just keep it going. But the great thing about it is that once you have your momentum going and you have just a couple, and it doesn't even matter if they're big or really actually important. Like, just racking up wins will get you going, and then it keeps you going. So, like, you do two things, you get 2 wins in, like in the morning, and that'll carry you. Like, after those 2 wins, it's not even going to be work practically. It's such a great thing. Of course, I'm talking with those kind of wins, I'm talking bigger wins, but you get the idea. And then you keep that going on for days or even weeks. I mean, that's why the tagline of Fight Failure is energy, momentum, focus, because these are the 3 most important things, psychologically speaking, for success. You have to have energy. Energy is the currency of success. It's what actually allows you to get things done in less time, is having more energy, because you don't have more time. So what do? You have more energy, and then you have more focus. So you waste less time, as little as possible, and then you have more energy to get more done in the time that you have. And then momentum carries you further, and it keeps you going, and it makes it easier. And you need everything you can to make things easier and simpler. And simple is always better than convoluted but efficient, in my opinion, unless it's just an insane margin of better in terms of the convoluted. But that's another thing, is make things as simple as you can wherever you can. But I guess I'm kind of getting, I forgot where I was. What small things in your life can you fix quickly to gain some momentum? That's a great question. I could clean that couch off. I've got some books on that couch. But I'm sure there's something you could do. You could gain some momentum. You could do whatever. Clean your room, that's Jordan Peterson's thing, is, you clean your room, you do whatever, and it works. You got to win. And guess what? It felt good. And by the way, mental clutter actually raises your cortisol. So if you're living in a dirty environment, or even if your fridge, and this has been shown, people with the dirty fridges eat less healthily than people with clean, neat, and organized fridges. And it only makes sense because you get the cortisol of looking at the fridge, and then also things are disorganized and shitty. And so you want to cook something, but I can't find this, I can't find that. I'll just go out to McDonald's. No, don't clean out your motherfucking fridge and start eating good food. Okay, so the next thing is to make a schedule for the life you want and stick to it. It could take a long time to master this skill of learning how to use a schedule, but it is vital. Don't give up on scheduling. And sort of related to that is you need to get up and go to sleep at the same time every day. And you stabilize when you eat. And don't skip meals. Without order in your life, you get overwhelmed. So you really have to take this stuff seriously and don't allow things to drift, and stick to your patterns and follow your schedule. And the schedule's your friend. That's why it says make a schedule for the life you want. The schedule is not a tyrant that is there to have this fucking schedule. No, it's your schedule. Make the schedule of the life that you want. There you go. If you are not willing to help yourself, nothing will change. It's true. It's just nothing's going to magically happen. If you're in what's known as external locus of control, where it's the world has done this to me. I'm just someone that things happen to. I don't make things happen. That's the mindset. And maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I would imagine that, since you found this video and you're listening to it, you're probably less into that than many, many people, but maybe you still have a little bit. But you need to understand that nothing's going to happen unless you make it happen. I mean, bad things will happen. There's not going to be too many magical good things that just pop out of nowhere and happen. That's not how it works. But doing anything, actually, and you may think, oh, that's so stupid. Well, doing anything. Well, the thing is, inactivity makes your pain worse. And this is a brain chemistry thing. And it goes back to the dopaminergic system, but I don't need to re-explain it. I mean, I'm sure you're smart, but so inactivity makes pain worse. You need to remember that. And so don't be inactive, and don't just sit around eating Cheetos and being lazy, because that sucks, and that makes you more miserable than whatever pain that exercise or whatever, for example, would make you feel. I mean, you'll feel like shit doing that. Okay, here's the last little paragraph. Frame your past experiences against truly terrible experiences. I mean, think about it. Things for you probably really aren't that bad. You likely have it better than most humans who have ever lived. And if you don't, keep in mind that you are still human, and that puts you beyond the 1% in terms of animals. So it's so important to be grateful for the life you have, for the people in your life, for your family, for everything else, for the fact that you're alive, for the fact that you're a human, and just that's so important to have gratitude. Well, that concludes this little boil down of this podcast. It was a great podcast. I enjoyed it. I was rambling. It's been a while since I've done one of these things, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked the content. And if you do, leave a comment, subscribe, all that other YouTube stuff, and I'll do some more. I'll do some more. So take care.